fans of high quality entertainment. So, sometimes my viewers give me ideas for videos. Sometimes, I'll thank them or whatever, heart them. But that doesn't mean I'm going to do what they suggest. But sometimes it kind of perks my interest. And so I want to thank Johnny Cash Lives 316. I just saw this comment today. Larry, you should do I know we spelled Ramones wrong, but that happens. Larry, you should do a Ramones versus Clash. And, I was thinking that over for a second. Okay, I love both bands, but which band, if you have to choose for the fun of it, which band would you pick? And so I thought I would do this. One thing on my whole YouTube career, coming up on 19 years, is I've never had a problem thinking of video ideas. But just, I don't know. I think I'm kind of not bored, but just frustrated with coming up with, especially music-related videos that are, repeating the same thing over and over. I like to keep my viewers interested in my channel. So thank you, Johnny Cash Lives 316. I'm going to do this. I put together kind of similar bands, in some ways not similar, in other ways, maybe popularity-wise or whatever, they're kind of similar. And I'm just going to go through this one by one. I've got Ramones versus The Clash, The Who versus the Rolling Stones, Devo versus the B-52s, Motorhead versus Metallica, and so on. You can read it. And I would especially love my viewers' thoughts on each of these. Like, which band or artist would you pick? So let's go through this. I have, even doing this, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to choose that band, because some of them I really have to think about. So Ramones versus The Clash. I mainly love the early Ramones, especially their debut album. And I kind of lost interest in them after Rocket to Russia. With The Clash, I basically love their whole career, excluding Cut the Crap, which I still don't own. It wasn't even part of this Clash box set. So overall, I would say The Clash. I think their albums are stronger. If I was going to listen to either my favorite Ramones album or my favorite Clash album, I would listen to Sandinista usually over Ramones. So yeah, The Clash wins for that one. Okay, The Who versus the Rolling Stones. So for their whole career. The Who. Who's Next? Tommy. The Who Live at Leeds. Quadrophenia. Then there's the Rolling Stones. Sticky Fingers. Get Your Ya-Ya's Out. Some Girls. I think overall, I would have to go with the Rolling Stones, as much as I love the Who. So, the Rolling Stones. Is anybody agreeing with me yet? Okay, Devo versus the B-52s. Easily Devo for me. I love Devo's early albums. The B-52s, I love Rock Lobster. Other than that, I've never been a big fan of the B-52s. So that was an easy one. Motorhead versus Metallica. Definitely Motorhead for me. I respect the band Metallica, and they've got great fans, but just, I don't know, Lemmy was one of the greats, And yeah, I would just rather listen to Motorhead than Metallica any day. This is a difficult one that I have to decide on. Creedence Clearwater Revival versus The Doors. Ugh. I'm really curious what my viewers think between those two bands. If you had to choose, which band do you like more? I think overall, I think the Doors albums are a bit more consistent than, like with Creedence Clearwater Revival. I love Cosmos Factory, Pendulum, Bio Country. Those are the three main ones for CCR. The other ones I don't play as much. Not that they're still great albums. But I think with the Doors, all of their albums are pretty consistent for me. And I even love later stuff like, when Jim Morrison passed away and they put out Other Voices. I think that's it's not as good as the earlier Doors albums, but I think it's still a very good album. And American Prayer, that they released in the mid 70s, is pretty interesting. I like that. So I'm going to have to go with, as much as I love CCR, I'm going to go with the Doors. Here's a big one. And I did a video a few years back, Yes versus Genesis. And at the time, I was saying Genesis. And then, of course, that changed a few years back, and I'm more of a Yes fan than Genesis. But lately, I've started to really appreciate Genesis even more than ever. With The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, I finally really appreciate, kind of similar to Yes's Tales from Topographic Oceans. It took me a long time to appreciate. But between the two, I'm still going to go with Yes. Especially, the John Anderson years. The Moody Blues versus Procol Harum. So I don't know the whole discography of either band, but the early albums, from the 60s, early 70s, Procol Harum is awesome. But I have to choose one. I have to go with the great Moody Blues. All right. Led Zeppelin versus Pink Floyd. Yeah, overall, I've got to go with Led Zeppelin. Yes, some of these are like pretty easy to decide, and some others aren't. Like David Bowie versus Lou Reed. Oh my gosh. I know most of you would pick David Bowie, but I am a huge Lou Reed fan. And they both put out quite a few albums, but I would say overall, Lou Reed, there's a handful of his albums that I'm not a big fan of. And with David Bowie, I don't think he put out any, mediocre albums. They were at least good. So I got to go with David Bowie. Queen versus Rush, the great Canadian band Rush. Now, I don't have any Rush in my CD collection. I've had vinyl records in the past and CDs, but I would just never play them. I'd play them once or twice, totally enjoy them, but just wouldn't go back to listen to them. But I've got everything by Queen in my CD collection, and I rarely play those albums. So it's, like I said, it's kind of even. But I still, this is a difficult one. I gotta go with Queen. Talking Heads versus Radiohead. This is an easy one for me, maybe not for you, but I'm going with Talking Heads. I especially love early Radiohead, when they were more guitar oriented. And with Talking Heads, Fear of Music is one of my all-time favorite albums. I love their debut, Talking Heads 77, more songs about buildings and food. Their later albums I never really bought, but, their first few. So it's going to be Talking Heads for me. Sparks versus Ween is actually a bit more difficult than you think. Obviously, I am going to pick Sparks because they have such a long career, over 50 years, compared to Ween. But I'm just a huge Ween fan now, as some of you know. But I still got to go with Sparks. U2 versus REM. Of course, I used to be a huge fan of U2. And I still, I really do love their early music up to about Octung Baby. REM, Automatic for the People. I love that album. But other than that, I would have to go with U2. And yeah, this was mentioned in the live chat yesterday with Glenn Kellaway, and I said Captain Beefheart, but when you really think it over, Frank Zappa had a lot more albums released than Captain Beefheart, and some of them aren't that great, but some of them are. And Captain Beefheart, he released a lot of great albums, and then some not so great albums. So, I have to go with Frank Zappa, just to make Glenn Kellaway happy. Just because of, he has so much great material. The Kinks versus the Beach Boys. I think you know who I'm going to pick if you know my channel at all. But I do love the early Kinks and the, up to the early 70s. I kind of lost interest in them by the mid-70s. And I love the Beach Boys. I got to go with them. They're, the one thing against the Beach Boys is they weren't consistent on their albums. There were great songs and good songs and not so good songs sometimes. But I still got to go with the Beach Boys. Here is the latest. Uriah Heep. I'm starting to really get back into Uriah Heep, and I was a Deep Purple fan back in the day. Machine Head, In Rock, their first 3 albums, which I do have. But I think Uriah Heep is a very underrated band. And, they're still going strong today. Not that I follow them anymore, but Demons and Wizards, all their early albums. I gotta go with Uriah Heep. Even though I think most viewers would probably pick Deep Purple, but it'll be interesting to see the comments below. So that's it. Let me know in the comment section below which ones you agree with and which ones you don't. And this is the fun of music. Nobody's right. Believe it or not, nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. It's just your personal preference on what you like. Bye.